Hey, what's going on guys? Tanmaya for Telusco Learnings, and in this quick short video tutorial, I want to discuss the topic of scope of variables. So in the previous couple of videos of this entire playlist, we've known what is functions in JavaScript. We've also seen what are variables. So I thought let's discuss about the scope of variables. And in JavaScript, things are pretty easy. We only have two different types of scope, that is global and local. So depending upon where you create the variable, your variable is going to be having two different types of scope. And when I say scope, it means that the life of the variable. Okay, so let me just actually show it to you. So let's say you create a variable a over here, you assign the value of 5, and now you want to print it. So you print it on the screen using the document.write function. And now what you can do is anywhere below in this entire script, you can again copy paste this and again print this variable, and the value still exists, right? Which means that this variable that you created over here is usable or is alive throughout this entire script till the very end. Okay, so this is basically a global variable, which means that its life is available throughout the entire page and throughout the entire script. So what is a local variable then? So when you define a variable inside a function, that variable is a local variable to that function. Okay, so let's try to do that now. So we've already seen what are functions in the previous video. If you don't know what functions are, you can check that video. So I'm just going to create a function saying function my function, opening and closing round brackets, and the body of the function. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this and paste it inside the function. And now you can see the output. We are not getting any kind of output because this a is now inside this function. So now it is not a global variable, it is a local variable, which means that it exists only inside this function. So let's cut this and let's paste this inside, and let's give a function call to our newly created function. So I'm going to say my function, opening and closing round brackets and semicolon. And now you can see again phi is printed. Because we are giving a call to this function, these two lines inside this function is executed, and variable a exists only inside this function, so it is local, and that's why it is printed. However, you can see we have one more document.write which is outside the function, but since our variable a is declared and created inside the function, here the value does not exist, which means that variable a outside the function does not exist. It is destroyed as soon as the function is over. Okay, and this applies to the memory also. So whenever you are running your JavaScript and your programs, your entire Chrome browser itself is in the RAM, it's running in the memory. So these variables are also created inside the memory. So these local variables are created only till the function is executing, and once the function is done executing, the memory of that function is wiped out, so the variables are also destroyed. However, the variables that are global, which are available throughout the script, will have a global lifetime, which means they will exist throughout the entire running of the application as long as your tab is open. Okay. So another thing about global variables is you can access global variables inside functions also. So let's say I create another global variable where b, and I say value is 6. I can access this inside our own function also. So if I say print b over here, you can see my function can access this b variable which is created outside the function, and you can see the value is printed as 6, which means that global variables can be accessed inside functions. However, local variables which are inside the function cannot be accessed outside, because here you can see we are doing that. We are trying to print the local variable a, but the value is not being printed. Okay, so one last thing that I wanted to talk about variables, which I did not mention in the first video of variables, was when you create a variable, we use var keyword, right? However, in JavaScript, we can exclude that, which means that we don't actually need to use the var keyword also. And you can directly say var1 is equal to and assign the value. And this is still a variable, okay? So you don't have to explicitly type in var, but what happens is when you do this, this becomes a global variable by default. Okay, so if I cut this and if I paste this inside over here also, this var1 is still a global variable because we did not use the var keyword, and now it is a global variable, which means you can access the value outside the function. But there is a slight issue, and that issue is our new browsers operate under a strict mode wherein they restrict the use of such kind of global variables. Okay, so global variables which are created inside a function without using var keyword are not directly accessible, even though they are global. Okay, so I don't want to get into a lot of details. I just wanted to talk about that you can create variables without the var keyword, and still you won't get an error. And then there is a slight difference between creating global variables inside the function and outside the function. I'll drop some info in the video description about this strict mode of browsers. You can read on it, but right now we don't need it. I just wanted to mention it. So yeah, this was a little bit about scope of variables in JavaScript. Now that we've seen the functions and variables, the scope of variables should be very clear by now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Do share it with your friends.